So you were there from the very beginning.
I was there.
One of the lifers.
I was a Conan lifer. I started working on the show. Well, I worked with Conan at SNL. When he was a writer there. And
that's interesting. I didn't know that the writers would interact with the music booker.
Well, when Conan started, I had that experience that I think a lot of people do with him. I remember going home and telling my wife, like, I met a guy today who's like maybe one of the funniest people I've ever met, which I know sounds crazy, but he, like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
I did not that I'd spent that much time with him, but we definitely connected. And it's not like we became best friends, but, you know, at SNL, especially for a new writer like that, when you would identify someone who was sort of nice and supportive and, you know.
And a good laugher.
A good laugher, yeah.
Oh, my God. You get a pair of handcuffs.
He was like, I got a live one. Yeah.
So and of course, Smigel worked at SNL.
Robert Smigel.
Robert and I worked together my entire time at SNL. You know, we were pals and got to know Conan a little bit. And so when the opportunity came up, so each season, like the year after I started, I got a job in the talent department. And then the next season, I became a talent coordinator and just sort of worked my way up to music booking.
Right.
Which is what I did the last few years I was there. And so, you know, when Letterman was leaving, it was obviously a huge deal. You know, we all know the story, obviously.
Right, it was leaving NBC.
And they're leaving NBC, and Lauren was given the hour to find, you know, given the 12:30 show.
Charged with picking Letterman's replacement.
I'm assuming that everybody read Bill Carter. Anyway, when he chose Conan, I was thrilled for Conan and knowing that Robert was involved. And I knew that Jeff Ross was going to be involved, and I knew Jeff a little bit. So I saw that as an opportunity to do something musically, or to be part of a cool startup. And
yeah. Were you like, I don't know how much longer SNL is going to last? Anyway.
I know. Listen, I did the calculus, and I think,
There's no way it can go beyond 95.
No. But no, the second element was that music-wise, I always thought the 12:30, like on the Letterman show, they were able to do a much more varied lineup. You know, SNL had to be big, big, big.
In terms of the musical acts.
Yeah, and what appealed to me was, you know, doing stuff that was sort of all over the map and a little more eclectic. And so
finding new talent.
Yeah. So Conan, they did a press conference at his opening press conference was at the Rainbow Room where he was introduced. And I ran into he and Smigel up there and said, hey, you know, I'd love to be a part of this show. And, you know, one thing led to another.
You just happened to be dancing up there.
I was, yes.
That was a fortuitous moment, I guess.
It was. And, you know, I spoke to Lauren and he sort of gave his blessing for me to change shows. And so I was part of the first, Paula Davis, myself, who was a head talent
producer.
Yeah. There were only a handful of us, but we were there, I would say, and like the show went on in September. We were there in like July for the startup.
Were you like, well, the show's coming on in September, it's July. I'll get around to looking at bands like, you know, late August.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no rush.
Conan requested the first guest that was on Late Night.
Yes. I mean, he has distilled it down to like, they told me I could have whoever I want. I mean, it was that was, in a way.
Within reason, yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
Conan, all that summer while we were in the office, it's sort of a well-known story now, but he, as he always does, walked around with his guitar, but the song that he was more obsessed with than any was Creep.
Sure.
So that was 1993, and I remember him doing that in 2021.
Last week.
Right.
So he's been doing it for 30 years and still hasn't improved.
And, you know, you have to remember, they weren't yet Radiohead.
Right.
You know, they were another
was
band.
Was that the year their first album came out?
Creep was the current single.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and yes, it's when that album came out. So I, you know, went right out to Capitol Records and said, hey, you know, everyone's aware of the new show and like, hey, we'd love for them to be the first music guest. And so it wasn't really a huge get at the time. I mean, yes, they had a big hit and Conan loved it,
Right.
But they just as easily could have been.
It could have been a one-hit wonder.
Could have been, Urge Overkill or one, the Breeders, or any other band that we had on in those weeks, But of course, in retrospect, it looks genius and it's awesome.
Totally.
I love it. I mean, it's just a great. It's a great legacy and it was a great kickoff for music on the show, and Conan loved it. So,
did Conan try to play creep with them on the show? Did he want to do that?
No. I don't know if Sweens, you remember probably, Jesse. I don't know if you've watched many of the old music clips or remember them from when they aired, but the first year on the show, one of Conan and Robert's ideas was to have footage, like stock footage, playing on a screen behind the bands.
Right.
And,
weird.
Yes. Just non sequitur, ridiculous,
and was it like a menu that the bands could choose from?
Yes. We gave them, our film researcher, I don't recall who it was at the time, but would gave us a list of here are these, and so I remember
it's like when you do karaoke and there's always just sort of like...
Exactly.
Oh.
So we took...
random stock footage, yeah.
We took Radiohead up to the 9th floor conference room and, showed them a few of the different options, and they chose cars driving around in circles very slow, like in slow motion. And so that's what appears behind them on their first Conan appearance.